Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to this show. I'm so glad you chose to spend some time here. And happy summer. I hope you've gotten to enjoy some warmer weather, more daylight, and all the things that summer brings. If this is your first time listening in, or if you've been enjoying Girls Talking Life for a while now, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And then every other Monday when a new episode is released, it will automatically go right to you and you don't have to go looking for it. While you're on your podcast app, please consider leaving a review to help other women find this show. Today on the show, I'm talking with Hollie Daniels. Hollie is a good friend of my very first guest, Carly Koval. If you haven't heard Carly's story, be sure to go back and listen to episode 1. Hollie joins me to share her story and all about her organization, Reaching for the Shining Starz. Hollie is a legal advocate for the city prosecutor's office. She's a speaker, a college student, the executive director of a nonprofit organization, and a lover of Brussels sprouts. She is also a human trafficking survivor. Hollie honestly and openly shares how she ended up where she did and what it was like. She also talks about the turning point for her and how she finally escaped after 17 years. The beginning of her story is hard to hear, but the radical transformation of Hollie's life is the reason you'll want to listen. This is not an episode to listen to with your kids nearby. Hollie talks openly about drug use, violence, and prostitution. That might sound bleak, but trust me, her story is amazing, and you'll want to listen to the very end to hear all that God has done in her life. You'll also hear from her cat at one point in the episode. Here's my conversation with Hollie. Hey, Hollie, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
I am super glad you're here. We've been working on getting together for a while now because you are friends of my very first guest, Carly.
Yes, that is my best friend. I love her to pieces. She's been an inspiration to me and a very major role in my life since coming into life is what I would say.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about you since we are just meeting for the first time. So what can you tell me about yourself?
So I can tell you that currently I am a legal advocate at the city prosecutor's office. I just was accepted into OSU and I start in August.
Fantastic.
I run an organization that's a nonprofit called Reaching for the Shining Starz that Carly had started in 2013 and I took it over in 2016. I have a past just like most everybody, but mine is a little different than most. And I just have this wonderful story of restoration, hope, and resiliency.
That's fantastic. I'm so excited to jump in and hear all about your story. So you said you're the executive director for Reaching for the Shining Starz. Can you talk to me just a little bit about what that organization does?
Yes, ma'am. So what we do is we extend a hand of love to women that are caught in the bondage of sex trafficking, homelessness, and addiction. The same streets that held me captive for 17 years are the same streets that we go out to every Sunday evening. We pass out hygiene bags, lunches, flip-flops, clothes, shoes, coats, depending on the weather. We just provide the basic needs that women aren't receiving currently in their life. We also offer a way out if they want a way out. Like we will take them to, most women are dual diagnosis that are in the lifestyle, and we try to get them into a detox facility or some safe place to get them off the street. We also do leadership and empowerment, self-esteem groups. We've done spa and beauty days. We've done a canoeing kayaking trip. We have a program called Stitched Up Hearts, where women do volunteer work and create like t-shirt bags that we can give back to the women that are on the street, or like different craft projects to do volunteer hours. And most of those women are survivors.
Okay, so you work with women who are currently on the street and then also who have been pulled out of that lifestyle.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this work is so important to you because that was you once.
Yes. Less than 5 years ago, that was me.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
When I look back and see in such a short period of time what I've done and what the people that surround me, my support system, have helped me do, It just amazes me. And like, I want that same feeling of joy and gratitude and accomplishment for my sisters because they deserve that. They are in a place where they feel like they can't achieve their dreams, but yet here I am, like I am achieving my dreams, even though I never thought it was possible. And I want them, like I'm reaching out my hand, like, please come with me. I want you to be on this side. I want you to feel what it feels like, because then you won't want to go back.
So take me back to your childhood. I know that you said in a previous interview that you started in prostitution at the age of 15. How do you get there? How does your childhood go that is where you end up at 15?
I can guarantee you that is never where I thought it would be. I swore to myself that I would never be like my mother. I would never be a prostitute, nor would I ever smoke crack, and ended up doing both. I grew up, well, I guess you would say prostitution has been a part of my life my whole life. My mother was trafficked at a young age, and by the time she got pregnant with me, she was prostituting on the streets of Columbus and smoking crack cocaine. So even though I didn't live with my mother at a very young age, I lived with my grandparents, they never missed the opportunity to tell me that my mother was, quote unquote, a whore and a hooker and a prostitute. So I grew up not knowing what this really was, but hearing about it all the time, and that my mother was a bad person. My grandparents were very toxic, dysfunctional alcoholics, and they smoked weed themselves. Lots of domestic violence and just a lot of chaos in the home. I remember my grandfather being like one of those belligerent drunks, like always drinking and berating everybody that walked through the house. Like I remember being called a hooker, a whore, worthless piece of shit, and I'd be just like my mother before I ever knew what any of these things meant, like before kindergarten, right? So like these things were ingrained in me at a very young age. So I grew up thinking this was normal, like drugs, alcohol, prostitution. It was just a part of my life.
Did you see your mom when you were younger?
She was like a tornado in and out of my life. Like she would be there sporadically. Like one weekend she'd be there and then I wouldn't see her for a year. I remember being like 6 years old and waiting because my birthday's on Christmas. And it was like Christmas time and she had written and called and said she was going to come and she had gifts for me. So I'm like 6 and I remember this vividly, like waiting at the window, like staring out the window, waiting for my mom to come, and she never came. So like this is where I really learned betrayal and how not to trust, and then also abandonment. If I didn't already feel that before, I remember those valid feelings at age 6, like this is what I'm feeling. I learned then never to trust anybody. So just a lot, again, like lots of dysfunction and chaos. I feel like Shameless would represent my life, if not a little crazier. So like the show Shameless, like I can think of like, hey, those are my people. So that's how I grew up, like chaotic, dysfunction, just, I don't know, just wild. And at about age 11, I started coping with my reality with drugs and alcohol. And then I hung out with a lot of older kids because I didn't look 11. Like I had matured physically.
That's the age of my oldest daughter. So that's...
Yeah. And like when I do because I do a lot of speaking events and like I do impact statements and tell my story often. And like I asked the audience, like, do you have children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews or sisters or family members that are 11? Can you imagine them having promiscuous sex? And I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody explained to me what sex was. And I'm having sex and I'm doing drugs. And at 11, like, it's okay. It's accepted in my home that I drink and smoke marijuana at 11.
Crazy.
I have a niece that's 11 and I cannot imagine allowing this innocent child to do these things and like doing it with her. Like I would not sit here and have a drink with my 11-year-old niece or smoke a joint or crack cocaine with her. Like, I mean, so I had no guidance. I had no supervision. I had no structure. I had no discipline. And a child needs those and they strive on those things, right? I didn't have any of that.
You were being brought up by people who were sick in their own ways and weren't able to provide a healthy environment for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I allowed that to be my excuse for a lot of years too. Like, oh, woe was me. I don't hold that against them today. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I just wish things were different, but they're not. And I am who I am today. And I guess everything that I've been through has made me the person that I am today. So I don't really regret it. But I was in and out of the judicial system because I was acting out. I mean, this was normal, right? Like, I mean, what kid wouldn't that's experiencing this trauma at home? I had already been physically, verbally, and sexually abused, probably all before the age of 6. And here I am, like 11, I'm acting out, I'm using drugs and alcohol to cope with my reality. So I'm in the judicial system and nobody's asking me like, what's going on? Like, why are you doing these things? I was automatically like labeled as a bad kid. So age 12, I remember smoking crack for the first time, doing like hard drugs, not just, I mean, I don't want to differentiate alcohol and marijuana from any other harder drug, but like street drugs, like I'm doing them at age 12. By the time I'm 15, I've been in JDC, group homes, foster homes. Still nobody's asking me, like, do you need help? So at age 15, I got in trouble. I was in a group home. I ended up punching a hole in the wall and getting in an argument with a staff member there. And I packed my stuff and I left because I didn't want to face the consequences of my actions. My grandmother said, like, I went out and like didn't come home or go back to the facility for the night. And when I did go to my grandmother's house the next day, she's like, you can't stay here. The police have been here looking for you. So I decided that I was going to go live with my real mother. I thought that it was a good idea at the time. I really longed for that relationship with my mother. I was still that 6-year-old peering out the window, waiting for my mother to show up. So I move up here and things are not what they seemed. She's still using drugs. She's living with a sugar daddy. I don't know if you know what that is, but just basically one of her dates or clients. Okay. And things weren't as what they seemed. She was still using drugs. I had already tried just about every drug there was, so drugs weren't new to me. But within 2 weeks of being here in Columbus, I'm smoking crack cocaine with my mother.
Was your mom happy to see you? Was she like excited to bond with you?
I don't ever remember that. Not an excitement like, oh, my daughter, I missed her, I love her. No, it wasn't anything like that. Maybe in her way, I don't know. But it wasn't like a reunification of a mother and a daughter. That's not what it felt like. She was a stranger to me. So like, I remember her taking me around to different drug dealers and drug houses. And before you knew it, like I was being prostituted to them so we could get high together. So within a month of being up here, I'm smoking crack with my mother and prostituting with my mother. I don't like to say she forced me into prostitution because she didn't chain me. She didn't beat me. She didn't lock me away and drug me like you would imagine, like the movie Taken. But I'm 15 years old and she's profiting off of selling me. So she prostituted me. I was definitely convinced and coerced into doing it. I was already doing it for free, so why not get paid for it?
Was that scary? What were you thinking? Like in the moments when this was happening?
I don't remember. I mean, of course I was scared. It was something that I didn't want to do, but I did it anyway. Like I wanted that relationship with my mother. I had never even seen a one-way street before. And here I am, like Franklinton, Ohio, the bottoms of Columbus. And it's like a really bad neighborhood and it's the city. And I'd never like seen a freeway or any of this before. So it was all new to me. It was very scary. But I didn't know what to do. I was lost and broken, very vulnerable. And then being exposed to the city and everything that she was introducing me to, kind of it was a shock, I would say. So that kind of went on for quite some time, from one bad idea to the next.
You guys were just kind of partners in crime at that point?
Pretty much. Yeah. Then somebody picked up right where she left off. Like I soon realized like I didn't need to share everything with her and like she didn't have to be my pimp, that there was somebody else that could do that for me. And then I met like this glamorous guy. It looked like he had everything. Like he had lots of women, like a stable of women. He had like jewelry, nice clothes, lots of drugs, lots of money. And he had said for me to join his team. And at the time, where do I go? What do I do? Like my mother is prostituting me. I'm doing drugs with my mother. I don't really have a place to go. So I did. I was probably about 16 at this time.
You're like, this looks like a new, better idea, better avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Like you listen to like rap music and everything that it portrays as glamorous and a god, that was him. Like everything that the rap industry makes sound good. So I did. And he used to say, you owe me your life. You signed on the dotted line. And I thought it was a joke. Like I thought it was funny. Like it wasn't a big deal, but he totally meant that. I remember spending $20 somewhere else. Like I purchased drugs from somebody else for $20. And he proceeded to beat me up. And then he allowed 2 other women to come in and beat me up. Like they had a crock pot lid and they broke it over my head. By the time I had been beaten for like 20 minutes, I was covered from head to toe in blood. And when he finally told them to stop, he told me to go upstairs, get cleaned up, and go get some money. And that's what I did because I feared that he would kill me. More than a few times this happened. Like, he's been in other houses and dragged me out by my hair and beat me up. He allowed everybody in the house to like spit on me and call me names after he had beaten me up. He would beat me up, wouldn't let me leave. And then I would wake up in the morning to him having sex with me, regardless of if I wanted it or not. I was his property. And that went on for quite some time.
Was this just you, or was that just how he treated everybody?
Pretty much how he treated everybody. In the situation we were in, most of us, even the women that were older, were already like so deep in the lifestyle. I felt like there was no way out. There was no one to turn to. Again, like, I'm accruing soliciting charges at age like 16. I'm being charged as a criminal, and the Johns that are picking me up are being let go. I was called a 16-year-old crack whore. Like, nobody asked me, like, do you need help? What can we do to help you? How can we make this stop? I was always deemed as the bad person. So I really felt like there was no way out like this. And this had been my normal. This has been my life. So I just continued it. And I was pretty broken by this time.
Did you realize in that time that you were being trafficked? Like, did you even know that was what was going on?
Not at all. Not at all. This was like early 2000. I don't think people in the United States had even recognized prostitution as any form of human trafficking. I don't think that happened until like 2007, 2009. And even then, like, if you would ask, it still to this day, like when I go out on outreach and I speak to women and I ask them if they consider themselves as a victim of sex trafficking, they tell me no. And then I pry a little bit and I ask a little bit about their story, like, who got you into this? Who introduced you? Who showed you how to do this your very first time? And there's always a story of sexual abuse, like molestation, rape, and then running away, toxicity and dysfunction. And then it gets to like a friend, a family member, or like a drug dealer that coerces them into it. So like I hear a sex trafficking victim. She doesn't see herself that way because I guess in that moment, like, you do whatever you can to cope. So, I mean, for 17 years, if you would have asked me if I was a victim of sex trafficking, I would have told you no. I thought I was a bad person and I was choosing this, even though it started with my mother at age 15. Who chooses to be a child prostitute? Nobody, I tell you, I promise, nobody.
Yeah. So this is going on for, I think, are we at year 2 now?
Yeah, I'm still with this guy. My mother is in and out of my life still. Like, she's still profiting and getting high off of whatever I'm doing. Probably goes on until about 18 with this one guy. He ends up going to prison, and then there was somebody else to pick up right where he left off. There's always a surplus of them. They're everywhere. Abusers and traffickers and just bad people. They probably didn't start that way. Something similar happened in their lives, I'm sure. I don't blame them.
Right.
I don't hate them.
A pastor that I listen to a lot says hurting people hurt people.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's just
very much so.
A cycle that continues on and on.
Somebody probably taught them this as well, just like they did me. So this other guy doing the same thing, same things are happening. I had met, we call them Johns or tricks. They're clients or however you want to call them. I had met this guy. He was paying me for sex, and it seemed like a mean to an ends. And I ended up living with him, trying to get out, but I like toggled back and forth between. I ended up marrying him. And then I became his possession. Like, he was very controlling and obsessive, possessive. I didn't address any of my substance abuse issues or my trauma issues, and it didn't last very long. I ended up going back out. And again, there's always somebody to pick up right where they left off. The guy that I'm probably in my mid 20s now. And the guy who had went to prison got back out of prison, and I ended up going back with him. Still endured the abuse. Like, I had like this trauma bond with him. I still suffer from it today. Like, sometimes I'll see like the good in him or wonder how he's doing. And it's been almost 7 years since I've talked to him or had any communication with him. And like, I still feel sorry for him or feel like maybe he loved me in his own way. I know that's sick. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome. Like, you have this person who's captured you, but you try to identify the good qualities of him. I don't know if it's a coping mechanism or what, but I definitely thought that I loved him for a really long time. So this time he's out of prison and he's giving me his drugs to hold and sell. And I did it. I didn't ever profit from it. He would take all the money. I would get to stay high. And when he would get mad at me, he would put me back on the street or send me to go make money by prostitution. And then when I wasn't prostituting for him, I was selling drugs for him. My attorney tells me that's labor trafficking. I didn't ever know that, but here I am. Like, I didn't profit from it, even though it was illegal. I was still being trafficked, labor trafficked. Mm-hmm. So that went on from like 2008 till 2011. He had been being watched by the federal government for drug trafficking. I ended up catching a charge for drug possession because they caught me with some, and he ended up catching a drug trafficking charge federally. I went to prison. He went to prison. And this was like the beginning of my escape from him, at least. And when I was in prison, I went to a faith-based dorm where they were required to do like Bible studies, go to church.
Was that something that you chose?
They don't make you do that. Like, you get to choose what program you want to go into. And I have never been religious in my entire life. Like, nobody in my family ever went to church. The extent of my spirituality, my religion, or my connection with God had always been very minimal. I remember like Vacation Bible School. Yeah. I went like 1 year with my friend's family. Like, it was just something like I was having fun with the neighborhood kids, and like their family invited me to go. And I remember one time, like in Easter, another neighborhood family took me to like a big program that they had, and they had like horses and a petting zoo, and that's it. That's all I remember.
So what prompted you to choose that? Do you know?
Because like, I do. I just remember at this time, I'm probably like 28 years old. I had been in the streets 12, 13 years. And I remember I've been raped, I've been beat, I've been held hostage, I've been kidnapped, I've been shot at, I've been stabbed. I have been in so many SWAT raids. I've been in houses that were shot up. And just somebody was holding me through all this time because I'm still alive. And like, I don't know what you choose to call him, but I'm choosing to call him God. And I wanted to build a relationship with him. I wanted something different. I longed for a relationship with him. And I chose to go to the faith-based dorm. This is where my connection to my higher power began. I hate to say that I found God in prison, but that's where it started for me.
That's okay.
So I learned a little bit about Christianity and God. And I wanted to do something different being released from prison, although I didn't have anywhere to go, or at least I felt like I didn't have anywhere to go. At the time, my mother was clean. She was off drugs, but she still had like a lot of trauma and mental health issues that hadn't been addressed. And then that guy that was my husband that I married, I ended up going back to him. And I'm living with my mother and this John, like he was my date, he was my client, now my husband. So I'm living with them. They're still chaotic and they're still crazy. And like, I just remember I had a counselor. I had seen her like 6 times. And I remember like the 6th time I'm seeing her, I'm like, I was happier in prison than I am here. And I'd been out of jail for like 5 months. In that 5 months, I tried to do some AA. I went to church regularly, and I met a few people, and they planted little seeds for me. They took me around and showed me what like Alcoholics Anonymous is like, how it is to have fun and be a person in life again, like how to have a life and be sober doing it, because not everybody drinks and uses drugs, although I had thought they did. And they also told me about a program called Amethyst and a program called Catch Court. I was not ready for either, but they introduced me to them. I ended up relapsing because I was still in this toxic environment and I just couldn't cope. So I ended up using drugs again and getting another charge, prostituting and possession of drugs. I ended up going back to prison for a second time, and this takes us to 2015. I lived this lifestyle for 17 years. I had been using drugs for longer, but I had been in the streets for 17 years by this time, and I was just tired. And for the first time in my life, I remember a public defender coming to me and saying, like, have you ever been to a drug rehab facility before? And I'm like, no. She's like, is that something you're willing to do? And I'm like, sure, why not? I had heard about that program called Amethyst from that girl that I met in AA. And I asked them if we could do Amethyst. And they sent a social worker to talk to me. And for the first time in my whole entire life, for 20 plus years of being in and out of the judicial system, they were offering me help.
Someone asked you,
somebody asked me.
What's wrong? What's going on under there?
what's going on. I was 31, 32 years old, and we had an assessment at Amethyst. I got accepted. We went to court for sentencing, and the judge didn't even look at the paperwork. He sent me to prison. At the time, I was very upset. Like, first I'm thinking, like, am I not worth saving? And then I remember having that assessment at Amethyst, and I asked her, like, I remember asking the therapist, I said, how do you know when you've hit rock bottom? And I just told her my life story. And she said, honey, you started out in rock bottom. At the time, I'm thinking, along with the judge saying, I'm not sending you to rehab, I'm sending you to prison, is like, I'm not salvageable. There is no hope for me. That's what I felt at the time. So I go to prison, doing some things different. Like, I really liked working out. I really liked church. I started doing counseling. And when I was in there, the counselor that I was seeing said, I think you'd really benefit from this human trafficking group that I have. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know why, but let's try it. I was willing. So I get into this group, and we're going over like the same wheel that they use for domestic violence, like the power, the control, the manipulation, the gaslighting, all these different things that abusers do to their victims. And like this light clicks on. I'm like, this is what people have done to me my entire life.
What's gaslighting? Can I ask you?
So gaslighting is like where the abuser will make you think that you're crazy or it's your fault, or like the things that he's doing, he's not really doing. They'll make you think you're crazy. And I've had that done so many times. My ex-husband would do that over and over again. Like, he would cheat or like make me feel like I was crazy for thinking it. And then I'd find out that he was. Or my pimp would make me believe the reason that he beat me was my fault.
Turn it back around on you. Okay.
Always. So like, I would always blame myself for the things that were being done to me. So like, I'm reading these pamphlets and these packets, and like the light is just coming on for me, and the fog is moved and I could see clearly. And this gave me the opportunity to, at the beginning, like, I felt like a victim, like, oh my God, why had this been done to me? But it gave me the opportunity to choose, like, to empower myself. Like, do I continue to be stuck in this and allow this to happen to me? Or do I move away from that and do something different in my life? And that was like the turning point for me, was being in that human trafficking group and identifying as a survivor of sex trafficking and being able to do something different and not continue to be used and abused and live that lifestyle. So I decided that I was going to do something different. I was getting close to leaving prison, and I was leaving without any probation, no stipulations. Like, I was done. I was just going to be out free and clear to do whatever I wanted. And I chose to go to Amethyst. I went to like unit managers, case managers, my mental health counselor. I said, how do I get into Amethyst? They all told me the same thing, like, get out of prison, go to a homeless shelter, and then get into Amethyst. And I'm like, that's not going to work, because if I get out and I have no structure or no stability or no place to go and I have to be in a homeless shelter, I'm going to go back to one of these people and end up getting high again. So I wrote Amethyst and I said, please save my life. 3 weeks later, somebody come to assess me. A few weeks later, we made a phone call. My counselor and I in prison made a phone call to see if I had been accepted. I'd been accepted. And at Amethyst, they give you like your own apartment, everything you need from A to Z. So you don't have to worry about like toilet paper, paper towels, dishes, everything you can think of, furniture, like the things that most people have in life and take for granted. Like I didn't have any of that. So I had to start over from scratch, and they gave me everything.
So you focus completely on your sobriety.
Completely. So here I am, like, they accepted me into their program. And I had said, like I told you earlier, my birthday's on Christmas Day. My release date from prison was Christmas Day. So like if you doubt there's a God, like, you just take a look at my life. So I'm getting released from prison on Christmas Day, and they pick me up from the Greyhound bus station, and they take me to my apartment. It's decorated for birthday and Christmas with presents. So it was so wonderful. Like, I haven't looked back. That was, my sobriety date is January 25th, 2015. I was released from prison December 25th, 2015. I did 11 months, and I started my new life December 25th, 2015. Since then, I solely focused on recovery and sobriety for the first year. That second year, January 2017, I started college at Columbus State.
Amazing.
And yeah, right? It's something I'd always wanted to do. I believe higher education is like one of the only ways out of poverty. Like, if you want to make a livable wage and not be stuck in this cycle of like needing the government to assist you, higher education. Plus it just feels good. Like I love learning. Like, I mean, it opens up a whole new world when you know these things. Like I can jump in any conversation today and like feel okay. So at Columbus State, I've been there for about a little over 2 years now. I was just accepted into OSU, which was a challenge because I have felonies galore. Like I have 5 felonies. I just had 40 misdemeanors expunged off my record, but I have these felonies and like I can't, and I'm getting ready to get them expunged too, but it's a long process.
Ohio State
so here I
is
am,
not
like,
an easy school to get into.
It's not, I promise you. I maintained like a 3.8 for like a year and a half, and I got into OSU with a 3.4. I worked really hard to keep my grades up because I knew I wanted to go to OSU. That's my dream.
Congratulations.
I want OSU.
That's so great.
So at first I got accepted, and then I had to like go through a committee to be accepted because I have felonies, and I was accepted. Like I had like recommendation letters from all my friends and coworkers and senators and representatives of state. And I did get accepted, which usually they don't. If you have like all these felonies, like they're not going to accept you. So they did. 4 years ago, I was being prosecuted and sent to prison. And today I work for and with prosecutors. Like it's an experience, and a humbling yet empowering experience where I will sit in a courtroom and I'll see a defendant come in handcuffs and shackles and their prison garb, like their prison wear. And that's not me today, but I get to help them if they choose. Like I get to be a part of the process if they choose to come out of the lifestyle. So that's nice for me. I like that. It's really awkward too, because like I'm like, how did I get on this side?
But who better to talk to those people and relate to them? I mean, you have all the credential with any of those women. Don't you find that they listen and trust you?
Relate, yes, much. I believe so. I hope they do. I think they do.
So let's go back just a little bit to your time at Amethyst. That is when you met Carly. And that is when you started helping with her. I think it started out as a small project because I think I met her about that same time, gathering items for hygiene bags. And that developed into reaching for the Shining Starz.
Yes. So I met her at our 12-step fellowship. And I knew from the moment I met her, like she had like some bright colors in her hair. And I was just like, and she was super sweet. And I really hung on to everything she said in the meeting. And I was just like, she's going to be my friend and she doesn't know it yet. And those were the exact words I thought. And we started building a relationship. And I remember somebody said, because I wanted to go back out and do street outreach. And in Amethyst, they ask you to do volunteer work. And that's what I wanted to do. And somebody's like, ask Carly. She does street outreach. So I asked her and I went out on outreach with her. And it was really emotional for me because I was seeing a lot of the same women that I was being trafficked with. I'm like on the same streets that held me captive, the same streets that I had been on. And I'm seeing the same women that we had like this bond together because we'd been out there for years. And it was good to see them and let them know that there is hope. But it was also really hard to leave them there. As we're doing street outreach, we approached this one girl and she's like on a concrete slab in a cubby hole asleep. And it's cold. It's like February, so it's still cold. And 2 of us get out of the car and we're approaching her. And as we get closer, I'm like, oh my God, I know this girl. That's my sister. So it's been generational for my family. It was my mom, it was me, it was my sister and my other sister. So like here I am. I haven't seen my sister in like 18 months. She stands up and I'm like, Rosie. And like, she's like 100 pounds lighter than what she was before. She has like a black eye. She has track marks all over her arms. Her face is picked out and she has like holes in her face. And I just can't believe that this is my baby sister. So I asked God, like right there, like, what can I do to rectify the situation? How do I help her? I had to keep myself safe because I can't like be out there trying to save her because then it's only going to cause me to relapse. Right. So I would go out every single Sunday. I never missed a Sunday to see my sister and give her a hygiene bag and something to eat and let her know, like, if you're ready, like I can get you into Amethyst. There's a program called Catch Court. Whenever you're ready, just let me know. And I continued to do this probably for like a solid year and a half. That was the only relationship that I had with my sister at the time. She'd been in and out of jail a few times. And I had a really good relationship with the director of Catch Court because I also volunteered at Catch Court. If you don't know what Catch Court is, it's called Changing Actions to Change Habits. It's a restorative justice program that's offered at Franklin County Municipal Court, where women that come in, either if they identify as survivors or victims of sex trafficking or just as a sex worker, and they're coming through with criminal charges that relate to prostitution, they can get this program where they're given 2 years probation and treatment. If they choose to get out of the lifestyle, this is a way out for them. So I had built a rapport with the director of Catch Court because I was volunteering there. And I said, Catch Court was never offered to me. Nobody ever gave me help. Please save my sister. So every time Rosie would go to jail, the director of Catch Court would go down there and offer her the program. I don't know how many times she turned it down, like 3, 4, or 5 times. She's like, nope, I'm not ready. I don't want to. And the last time she was arrested, this was like 18 months ago, we went down there. I went down there, and then Hannah, which is the director, went down there, and she was like, okay, I'll take it. I'll do it. So it might not be the first time, might not be the 6th time, but don't stop offering help. One day it might click for them. So she gets into this program, and today she has 18 months clean. She's getting ready to graduate Catch Court. We just went on a trip to Myrtle Beach together. We went parasailing. So like, these are things that I get to experience with my little sister. Like my first time for this, like my first time trip to Myrtle Beach, my first time parasailing, like we got to experience that together. So it's amazing,
wonderful.
right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Wow.
Like if I wouldn't have went out on outreach with Carla that day, it might not end. Our story might not have ended the same as it has today.
So Reaching for the Shining Stars continues to do these Sunday outreaches.
Every Sunday.
I have been on one of those. Holly, did you know that?
No, I did not know.
Yeah, my friend Joan and I, several years ago, went out with Carly on a Sunday.
Okay.
It was scary. Those are not neighborhoods I'm used to being in. Mm-hmm. There were very clearly transactions happening around us of women or drugs. You know, we couldn't always tell what was going on. Carly did most of the talking, and we were just kind of observing what was going on. So but I've done that. You ever fear retribution from any of the men when you're out there?
So I have feared that you never know where somebody's head is that day. Like it could be a crazy day, a wild day. You never know what they're thinking or what's going on because they have these erratic and dramatic behaviors.
And you're trying to keep their girls away.
Or yes. So sometimes like we've even seen, like we've passed out bags and lunches to the women, and then we go down the street, and then we're coming back up the street, and then the man has the meal. And like, what do we do here? Like, how do we change that? I mean, I have feared it, but for the most part, people don't really bother us because I don't know, again, like, is this God watching over us? Like we haven't had, in 4 years of doing this, we haven't had any retribution or any problems.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So you volunteer with Carly, and then you go on to be the executive director of this organization. How did that happen?
Yes. So Carly embarked on getting her nursing license back, and she ended up getting married, and they have a blended family. So there's 4 kids involved, and like just a lot of life things. And she didn't want it to just stop. Like she wanted it to continue to grow. And she kind of just gave it to me. She's like, because I was like my baby at this time. Like I'm going out every Sunday. Like I'm attached to it. Like I'm seeing my sister. And she was like, just take it over. Like you can take it. But like I would ask her like what to do and how to do it. I still to this day, like even though it's pretty much mine, like I'm still asking her. I have a whole board of directors, but I'm still asking
She's
Carly.
your consultant. That's great.
So absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so we talked about the hygiene items. You give clothes, you do experiences for these women. I even noticed that you partner with other organizations in Columbus. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yes. So like with Freedom a la carte and Out of the Darkness and Sister Nadine, Salvation Army, Corsi, we have like a pretty good rapport with everybody that's doing similar or same work as us, because many hands make for light work. And I alone cannot make a difference, but together I feel like we can make a dent in what's happening today. So I wish that I could be like Superman and save the world, but I can't do it alone, but together we can.
So what can someone do? What can someone like me do who's local, or someone who maybe is just listening from far away today?
So if you're in a different city or a different county or a different state, I would suggest you partner with one of your local organizations doing something that you want to do, whether it be street outreach, whether it be education, awareness, or prevention. Like people go into schools and teach children about this so that they are not susceptible to the vulnerabilities of traffic or being vulnerable to traffickers. If it's just telling somebody about what you heard today, it's not like the movie Taken. Kidnappings and abductions happen every day, but it's more like a slow and gradual process of an expansion of your boundaries and a gain of your trust. So just telling somebody, because you never know who you might be educating. Donations are always needed. If you're in a financial stability place, a financially stable place to help, that's always needed. Or if you can order hygiene products and give to your local organization that's doing something similar to this, that's a great help as well.
Okay. And if they're local and can connect with you.
So we always need help. We need help with building our website. We need help with writing grants. We need items in kind like hygiene products. Always accept monetary donations. You can volunteer. We're trying to branch out and do all sides of Columbus. Right now, we only do the west side, and we've just recently trying to experiment with the east side. So if you could drive, or you could help organize donation drives, or if you can help organize bag stuffing events, there's so many ways to help. We are growing and we have growing pains and we need help.
And they can find you at the Shining Starz.
So reaching for the Shining Starz on Facebook, or you can reach out to me at the Shining Starz with a Z, at theshiningstars.org.
Okay. Shining Starz with a Z.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I had a question here just to ask how God has been working in your life, but I think we covered that.
Yes.
What is next for you? And how does your faith, how is that integrated?
It's a daily process to have faith, because as a human, we always want to control situations, right? We're either stressing about the past, what happened yesterday, or we're worrying about tomorrow. So on a daily basis, I'm trying to just live presently and allow it to be God help me. What am I going to do today? Because you never know, I'm having a surgery tomorrow. I'm worrying about all these things that could possibly happen. And what I really need to do is just say, God, hold me in your hands like you have always done, and guide me, lead me, and direct me on my next journey, tomorrow. So for me, where I'm going is, I plan to go to OSU. I'm taking strategic communication. So I'm not really sure where I'm going. I just know that God is leading me.
I think that's pretty much the story for all of us, right?
Yeah.
We don't really know.
Never know.
Okay, Hollie. I end by asking all my guests for their favorite 5 things you are wearing, eating, watching, listening to. What are your favorites right now?
I'm reading Brene Brown, Daring Greatly. I have all of her books back there, but right now I'm reading Daring Greatly, which is absolutely phenomenal. It gives me the opportunity to learn about vulnerability and shame and how I need to be more vulnerable. So Brene Brown is one of my favorites.
Love her.
Brussels sprouts are my new, I know, right? If you guys could only see Johanna's face right now, it's something new that I tasted for the first time, probably not even 4 or 5 months ago. And I could eat them every day, salt and pepper, bake them in the oven, a little bit of bacon crumbles, and Brussels sprouts are just freaking amazing.
I love Brussels sprouts too. That just really surprised me.
Yeah, I know. So I would have to say traveling has become a vice of mine. I'm planning even weekend trips, even if I could get away for the weekend, go experience somewhere new, local, a new town, a new restaurant in Ohio, or I'm planning a trip to Toronto. I want to see Toronto. I want to see Manhattan. I want to see Florida. Traveling is big for me. Restoring broken relationships with my family. I have 4 sisters. One was given up for adoption. I have a relationship with my sister that recently got off the street and it has 18 months clean. But I have another sister that our relationship has been pretty broken, and I have an 18-year-old sister. So right now, that's one of my favorite things to do is just reach out to them and have a small conversation to get to know them better, because we don't know each other. We're like strangers. That's 4, right?
That's 4.
Perfume.
Do you have a favorite, or you just all the perfume?
I love all perfume, but I would have to say my favorite is Versace Bright Crystals.
Okay.
I'm addicted to perfume.
My daughter is just getting into this right now, and I'm oh, too much, too many smells.
Some people like purses, some people like shoes and clothes. Mine is perfume.
Perfume. Okay, that's great. Between your perfume and your Brussels sprouts. You're making me laugh. I just think that your story is phenomenal, Hollie. I can't even start to imagine. I mean, from where you started to where you are now is night and day. And
Completely.
I'm so excited for you that you are not continuing the cycle and that you're doing something. I mean, you're turning it around and you're helping these women that are in the exact same position that you were, and you are doing a great job at it. And I love your story.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Is there any last little nugget of advice that you would give for someone?
So no matter what you're going through, what's happening in your life, don't give up. Continue to have hope and faith that it can and will get better. Because if you give up, there's not tomorrow, right? Like if you just end today, there's not tomorrow. So continue.
You've given us a great example of where to find your hope.
It's never lost.
Thank you, Hollie. I hope you loved my conversation with Hollie. A lot of it was hard to hear, but there were so many good lessons. No matter what you've done or where you are in your life, you are never too far gone from the love and hope of Jesus. If you have someone in your life that is suffering from addiction, keep reaching out to them. You never know if this is the time that they'll accept your help. If you have the opportunity to work with kids or young adults that are acting out and getting in trouble, try to dig deeper to find out what's really going on. No one asked Hollie until she was in her early 30s. Hollie's glimpses of God came from going to vacation Bible school and a church program with kids in her neighborhood. Invite people. You never know what seed you're helping to plant. Maybe before today you weren't that familiar with human trafficking, and now you have a better understanding of what it is and how it can happen to young girls. I hope it stirred a compassion in your heart for women caught in this lifestyle. If you are local and want to donate or volunteer with Reaching for the Shining Stars, be sure to go to theshiningstars.org to get connected. Everything we talked about can be found in the show notes for today's episode on girlstalkinglife.com. And also be sure to find me on Instagram at girlstalkinglife. If you know someone who would enjoy this podcast, please share it with them this week. And friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. Thanks for tuning in.